we need to talk about the new Wizard101 dating sim. If you aren't already aware, KingsIsle Entertainment, the same company that produced two very popular MMORPGs of the early 2000s, are in the process of making a new game. This game is called Ravenwood Academy, and it seems like it's going to be a prequel for the game Wizard101. The description used in the Steam store reads like a Your Name fanfiction, where the new loser kid gets to bang the hot teacher. And the promotion video is one big nothing burger full of reused assets, only they slapped a new shader pack on top of it all. According to this Steam user, they even reused dialogue from a previous Wizard101 event. We'll circle back to this later because it happens to be true information and I want to go more in depth about it. We're off to a pretty bad start given that this is what the PR team decided to put as the very first thing you see when you arrive at the store page. And so you might be asking yourself after all of that, what will this game actually entail? If you scroll through the description of the game, it seems to be more similar to a Danganronpa / Ace Attorney type choose-your-own-adventure visual novel with multiple trials to kind of prove or disprove guilt of yourself or someone else. Either way, the description is extremely vague to the point where I'm not even sure if KingsIsle themselves knows which direction they'll end up taking this game. However, I didn't make this video to talk crap about this game that hasn't even come out yet. I'm not able to play it because it doesn't really exist. Instead, I made this video to talk about the promotional art, which is an absolute abomination to humankind. Wait a minute, that's not right. That's the version that I fixed in Procreate. What does the original actually look like? It can't be that bad. There's no way it's that bad, right? Although this promo material is insanely ugly in my eyes, it has an admittedly small minority of people in the comments going nuts in a negative way. And I just wanted to highlight those comments because I kind of agreed with some of them partially. For example, this user on Facebook thinks that the promo image looked like it came straight from a 10-year-old's DeviantArt account. Additionally, on Twitter, this user even alleged that the banner was created using AI artwork due to the head of PR's past dabbling in Midjourney software and posting it to Twitter. They also even circled specific points on this picture that made them think that it was AI generated, including like hands and eyes and noses and other things that didn't quite look right. Personally, I don't think that all of it is AI generated art, and I'll tell you why, but I also think that the fact that they generated an AI galaxy in the promo video itself doesn't really work well for their case. So what you're seeing right now is a full picture of the promo material that you can find on Twitter. I'm going to outline the different points that kind of look like it could be AI generated art, but these are also the same as just anatomical errors on the perspective that they're trying to draw. So really take it with a grain of salt and make your own conclusions from this. First, I'm going to go over this blue outfitted character. When we look at their hand, we see an extra finger on their hand, potentially. If it's not an extra finger, it might be a part of the book, but it doesn't really look like it is. So it's kind of in general, just very confusing thing to look at, even though it is minor. After we go there, I'm going to lead you to the purple character on the left-hand side. Her pinky finger looks a little bit thick for some reason, like she's been lifting weights with only her pinky finger. And I don't really know why they did that. It looks a little bit uncomfortable to look at, and I wanted to point that out because the person on Twitter also pointed that out. Additionally, their nose is a side profile nose when their face is in 3/4. In general, this isn't necessarily an indicator of AI-generated art. It just shows that whoever drew this doesn't really have a good handle on perspective and understanding the way that a face is meant to look in different positions. But the problem area starts when it's colored in pretty well for a game that wants to evoke this kind of 2000s nostalgia, even though this perspective is pretty bad. Now, finally, I'm going to draw your eyes inward to the part that I mostly corrected in my redraw of this image. We're going to look at Dahlia's tatas because they're a big issue. I don't know about you guys, but as soon as I first saw this image, my eyes were immediately drawn right there, and I don't think that's what they had intended because that's a little bit funky that you would do that. As someone who is an avid fan of drawing human anatomy, I can tell you that her tatas are not affected by gravity enough as they should be, and these lines that are connecting her under bob to her top of her bob are not lining up. They're kind of not working very well, and it makes me a little bit uncomfortable to look at. Schmoobs aside, there's also a missing puffy sleeve on the other side. Her sleeve is massive. You should be able to see it poking through on the other side. And outside of that, there's this random crease on the front of her shirt that has no rhyme or reason and no purpose being there. Now, one telltale sign of AI art is not necessarily bad-looking artwork. It is lines that are unexpected and lacking of purpose. Because you're feeding these images to train this AI, it is looking for patterns that it can recreate. And for that reason, you're dealing with a lot of lines that serve no purpose. When you look at her dress, you can see some things that are kind of looking like they're meant to be wrinkles, but because they have no real reason why it's wrinkling, it kind of leads to this confusion in the viewer and this discomfort and kind of an uncanny valley feeling, because it's kind of like there's no reason for that wrinkle to be there. Why is it there? It's just something that if it's not AI generated, I wish this artist would be more mindful about their work, because it feels like they're just throwing random stuff down. And I don't want to say that because I know that's like very rude, but it's kind of the truth in this particular scenario for me. And it's very disappointing to see from a company that has well-established artists like Adam Roche doing like the loading screens and some of the concept design, because his work is fantastic, and I know for a fact that he wouldn't do something like this. So even if you are hiring new interns to get work done for you, I just wish that the creative director would step in a little bit more and make this piece look a little bit better than it would have otherwise looked when you just kind of let it go like this. So kind of circle back a little bit. Do you guys remember when I was talking about how some of the dialogue for one of the Wizard101 events was reused in this promo video? We're gonna circle back to that. So it turns out this Steam user claimed that this promo video had the same dialogue as the Professor and Box event. Now, at first, I didn't really understand what that meant, but then I was able to figure out that they meant the Boxes event, which was kind of like a little homage to Doctor Who. In this event, the Professor has his box, and he takes you in it to go correct a timeline that's been disrupted in the past. In this timeline, it just so happened that Dahlia Falmia was an ice student rather than a fire student. And the plot of this first section, which is in Wizard City, is basically just you trying to get Dahlia to become a fire wizard instead, so that the piece can be returned to the spiral and she can have a normal future that we are all existing in. So if we look at the promo video, it seems that some lines are copied verbatim from this initial Boxes event. For example, Dahlia comes in here and says,
"If I fail my next exam, I'll be expelled. If I fail my next exam, I'll be expelled."
Now in the Boxes event, this is relating to Dahlia being upset that she's really bad at doing ice wizardry. She's like really bad at it. And she's like, I need to change something. And it's all because her goofy arse didn't take that initial quiz to sort her into the right place. And she was like worried about that exam to sort her into the right house, so she didn't do it and just chose ice instead. But we were kind of given nothing in the promo video, and this dialogue is even taking place in a different area than in this original event. So this leads me to believe that it might be different, even though the dialogue is the same. The second repeat dialogue is by this crock fire professor guy that was the previous professor of the fire school before Falmia. And he says,
"It's thrilling to see young wizards with fire in their veins. It's thrilling to see young wizards with fire in their veins."
Now, this piece of text basically takes place after you fight a bunch of fire guys, and TLDR, Falmia is gonna get into the fire school where she belongs. Additional sidebar, but if you look at Falmia's robes, when she's in the ice school, it looks kind of similar to this blue character that has their face obscured in the corner of the screen over here. This might be grasping at straws because in this original event, she doesn't necessarily have this armband or this ring, but I think the color is very similar, so at the very least it's either an ice wizard or it's Falmia, and they're just not wanting to spoil it for some reason. After all that, you might be wondering, why does this matter to me? Well, it might not matter to you, actually, but I will say that the storyline of this game is probably going to follow the story of the professors when they were still at school. This is pretty obvious given the promo material so far, even if we were given nothing else. We don't necessarily know how much crossover will actually exist between these boxes events and this new game, but we do know that this event explores a timeline that needs to be changed in order to revert back to the original one. So maybe this is just exploring the original timeline outside of this particular event. I don't really know. I honestly hope they come out with more info and progress updates as the development continues, because so far we have reused plot lines, assets, dialogues, and even alleges of AI-generated artwork, and none of those are really pleasant to think about. In the end, I'm very curious to see how it'll turn out, or if it'll even finish being made in the first place. But I also won't be buying it if they try to make it $30 and up, because I just don't think it's going to be worth that much, especially if there's such a large overlap in the repeat of dialogue and content in general. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Goodbye.